Hello and welcome to the Libertarian Perspective, a discussion of state, local, and national issues with a libertarian flair. My name is Doug Klippel. I'm the former state chairman of the Libertarian Party of Florida. We appreciate you tuning into this installment of Libertarian Perspective. We're very pleased to have a couple of guests with us today. First, we've got Phil Laibe. Phil, good to see you again, and thank you so much for taking your time to be part of our broadcast, the regional representative for the Libertarian Party of Florida for this segment of our state.
Great to be here, Doug.
Yeah, and we're actually doubly honored to have yet another guest with us, Scott MacNaughton, who's the chairman of the Libertarian Party of Duval County. Scott, I know you've been on this show before, but not when I've been here.
Right.
So it's actually nice to kind of formally meet you in this setting, and we certainly appreciate you carving out some time to be on our show today.
Fantastic. Pleasure to be here, Doug.
Yeah, so we've got the Three Musketeers here. Hopefully not the Three Stooges, no, the Three Musketeers. And we've actually got a full agenda, as we always do on these shows, Scott, because our political friends at all levels of government, whether it's federal, state, or local, are always up to all kinds of mischief. So unfortunately, we've always got lots of things to talk about. We've got an overhead that talks about what we're going to go over today. We'll go ahead and put that up. Guys, we're going to take a few minutes to talk about Scott Brown's victory in Massachusetts. Kind of certainly sent some ripple waves through the political establishment in terms of a Republican, frankly, a no-name Republican coming in and taking the late Ted Kennedy's position in the US Senate. We're going to talk about our friends in the Tea Party movement. And talk a little bit about whether this is an harbinger of things to come in terms of the American political process. You know, how deep is that movement? Is it really a resonant movement? And is it perhaps something the Libertarian Party can actually capitalize on moving forward? We're going to talk about the Florida Senate race, which we're going to categorize now as Marco Rubio versus our friend Alex Snitker, a Libertarian Party candidate. Governor Christ has kind of dropped off of the radar screen. Rubio is up at a double-digit lead in terms of the polling in the Republican primary. So is this going to be a two-person race between Rubio and Alex Snitker? And to what extent is Marco Rubio actually going to be singing from the small government, low-tax songbook? We'll talk a little bit about the Citizens United versus the Federal Elections Commission case, the recent Supreme Court case that dealt with the right of corporations to spend money on political advertising. It resulted in President Obama actually calling out the Supreme Court in his State of the Union address, and some interesting video footage of some of the Supreme Court reactions to that while that was going on. Talk something about what we call a demand for question time. Question time is that great period, for those of you that ever watch British parliamentary politics, where the Prime Minister gets up there and gets railed and raked over the coals, and President Obama had a sit-down meeting with House Republican members a week and a half ago that has led some people to say that maybe that kind of regular dialogue is something we need to get the President out of the ivory tower and get him to answer the demands of the people. And then finally, in our regularly occurring segment, Government Abuse of the Month, we're going to talk about the federal government and GM, and particularly with the Toyota recall. Now that the federal government is a majority stakeholder in GM, are they playing that angle a little bit to disadvantage Toyota and perhaps look after their own business interest in terms of General Motors? So if we don't have enough to talk about with all those topics, I don't know, we'll have to invent something else, but I got a feeling we're going to have a pretty full plate. So we'll go ahead and jump right into it, put our first overhead up about the Scott Brown victory in Massachusetts. Now, this guy, Scott Brown, pretty much an unknown, came out of the woodwork. Ted Kennedy's had that Senate seats for, close to 50 years or whatever. A lot of people are seeing his election as a referendum on the health care bill and the fact that people were dissatisfied with that, the federal government's, proposed plan of action on health care, and that people, by voting for Scott Brown, saw that as grinding that to a halt. There are some questions about, frankly, is Scott Brown really a small government Republican? I mean, so he voted for and supported the state health care plan in Massachusetts while he was a member of the State House there. He's also signed greenhouse gas legislation in the past or whatever. But I'll just open it up to you guys. Scott, what's your take on this? Were you surprised by it, first of all, and what kind of a bellwether do you think this is?
I was surprised by it for the sheer fact that here was a Republican in a heavily Democrat state, and it does show a change in the electorate. The electorate, the people voting are awake and paying attention to the issues. And I see that Scott Brown is a candidate that has, he's a large government Republican, and I do see a lot of opportunity for our candidate, Alex Snitker, to take charge of, for the electorate to take a look at him. If they take a look at him, they'll see that he's small government, wants to get the government out of our lives, and I see a lot of hope that the electorate has taken a chance. The silent majority has awakened. And so I do see that as a bellwether for what's happening in our election process. And our founding fathers were accurate that you give the education to the people, they will vote the Constitution.
Well put. You know, Phil, there's some thought that maybe since Scott Brown was kind of elected as being the person that could stop this health care initiative, and he's come out in opposition to the Democrats' version of the health care plan, there's some thought that maybe this is actually going to be a launching pad for him to really be a small government Republican, or that the pressure is going to be for him to, you know, oppose taxes, oppose spending, and oppose expanding government. Any thoughts on that?
I hope that's what happens. I'm a little bit cynical. I feel that, you know, Massachusetts is not really a small government type of state. They already have government health care, and this guy voted for it. So I hope that the voters are moving towards small government, and they just voted for the wrong guy. They should have voted for Joe Kennedy, by the way.
There's no relation to the Kennedys of lineage that are there in Massachusetts.
No.
Neither in terms of family relationships nor political leanings. But
there's a lot of Kennedys in Massachusetts. It doesn't mean you're a part of the Camelot or whatever it is if your last name is Kennedy. But hopefully, since a lot of the media is saying this is a referendum on health care, hopefully he takes that and decides, you know what, maybe people really don't want this health care, and he makes the right decision. I don't think that's his leanings, but hopefully he changes, and that's what happens.
You know, certainly a lot was made about this Scott Brown in terms of being kind of, you know, an average Joe to a certain extent. You know, I mean, he comes from kind of a working class background. He put himself through school and things along these lines. He drives a pickup truck that has 200,000 miles on it and things along those lines. One of the best bumper stickers around that campaign, by the way, was a bumper sticker that said, "I'd rather be in Scott Brown's truck than Ted Kennedy's car," which I thought was pretty funny. But but anyhow, you know, is this a sign that perhaps we're moving away from kind of this elitist notion of government that people want candidates that they can relate to a little bit more, that they feel relate more to their day-to-day concerns?
I believe it is a sign that people want candidates that are not in the ivory tower that you had mentioned earlier, but are part and parcel, have come out of their background. I think people are looking for candidates that will go in, represent them, and then come back out instead of spending careers there 30, 40, 50 years in the Senate, in the House. You see these career politicians, and they've lost sight of the electorate. And I think the voters want people that will go in and then spend a few years there representing them, and then come back out.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, absolutely. And you know, Phil, the famous show tune, New York, New York, has a line that says, you know, if I can make it there, I can make it anywhere. Granted, Scott Brown may not be as fiscally conservative, small government minded as we as libertarians would like, but if a conservative candidate can win in Massachusetts, can a more conservative candidate win anywhere? I mean, is that the way that it works?
Well, I certainly hope so, and I really do hope that the people are looking at candidates in a different way, because one of the problems we've had and why we have the problems we have in government is people have looked at the candidates and said, well, this guy is polished and has a great haircut, and I'm going to vote for him. And the real citizen legislature, like we're running with Alex Snitker, kind of gets swept under the rug. And that's why we do have people we literally have people that have been in Congress for half of the time it's been in existence, and that needs to change if we're really going to change America.
Yeah, very, very well put. And I think, you know, the last candidate that people really want to vote for him for his haircut was probably John Edwards, right? Remember him with that real expensive haircut, and heavens knows we know how that ended up. So we'll leave that on that note. But, you know, with this idea